Welcome, adventurers, to the world of Kulgurath and the final batch of creatures that I have designed for this first volume of the bestiary, which I'm going to be bringing over to Kickstarter for crowdfunding in the near future. In today's video, we're going to start off by venturing over to the realm of Primordia, located here on South Archaea. Those of you who saw the video in this series where I showed off the Torquatoa and Snapvine Hydra might remember the theme of this locale. It is a harsh biome where there's a mass amount of magical, elemental energy that leaks into it from the primordial planes, which are like these other realms that exist outside of the world of Kulgurath. And because of this powerful energy seeping into the area, all the creatures that inhabit it are either elementals themselves, or they're just like plants and animals that are juiced to the gills with this magical energy. So this design you see me sketching up here is for the Phoenix. Now this fire chicken here is going to classify as an elemental, and as such it is not born from an egg, but rather a manifestation of the flame. So on occasion these creatures will spawn from the primordial planes into this environment. And just like with your standard Phoenix lore, when these beasts die, they turn into a pile of ash from which they can eventually respawn from. I felt like the Phoenix here would be a solid choice to include in the Elementals category, since my lore for them ties in pretty well with that aspect of being reborn from this magical substance of ash. When it comes to the design here, I decided to give it 4 wings and a rooster-inspired head. There's a lot of different interpretations of the Phoenix that are inspired by all different kinds of birds, but I wanted to go with the rooster vibes to incorporate that little comb and waddle with its head, and just because I think it's kind of funny to use a bird that most people would think is a little silly and turn it into something pretty cool looking. I also wanted to make its size smaller compared to most of the creatures I designed, because I like the idea of powerful elemental mages being able to summon them to assist in combat. And part of the way I'm going about establishing this whole world and such is partly video game inspired. So whenever I design these things, I'm taking into account how they would work in like an RPG, for an example. So mages break down into 2 different specializations, the Arcanist and the Elementalist. And Elementalists are the ones who utilize the power of the elements to cast their spells, and they can summon various beings to assist in combat based on each element. And by the way, here's the elemental chart, so you know all of them that exist here in my world. Also, Arcane is classified as pure magic, so it's not listed here on the chart. So for those of you folks who like to go the path of a caster type character in your RPGs, maybe consider the path of the Elementalist, so you can call upon these creatures to assist you when confronting the many foes of this world. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the Phoenix. Now let me just read off its lore entry here before we move on to the next creature. As an elemental, the Phoenix is a creature born from pure fire magic that is leaked into our world from the primordial planes. It is perhaps most famous for its never-ending cycle of death and rebirth. At the end of a Phoenix's life, when its flames have become fully exhausted, it will combust and turn into a pile of ash. These remains contain perhaps the most potent healing properties of any substance known in existence, which the Phoenix can even be reborn from if not disturbed. This substance is highly prized for its medicinal purposes and is the key ingredient for the most powerful of potions. Then you got some extra little notes and details there. The flames that emit from their 4 wings can decimate foes or heal allies, and the most powerful elementalists can summon these magical creatures to assist in combat. And since, you know, they constantly die and are reborn and stuff, I didn't give them that long of a lifespan. So there you go. And with this one done, we'll go ahead and move on to the next creature of today's video. Alrighty, now we're going to be sticking with another species of elemental, which is my world's version of the Gargoyle. Gargoyles, as you know, are used in many sorts of Gothic architecture to convey water from a roof and away from the side of a building, thereby preventing it from running down masonry walls and eroding the mortar between, as well as just looking really cool. But in the world of Kulgurath, however, I went with a different approach. These creatures are formed from the gathering of stones held together and powered by earthen elemental magic. If we pull up the world map here, they can be found spawning in many rocky regions throughout the continent of Arathia. They are often located around things like ancient ruins and temples, where civilization has long since abandoned the areas and nature has grown over and covered much of the remains. These creatures can lay dormant for a millennia as long as no one disturbs their peace. Since the gargoyles are elementals, their form can slightly vary from one to the next. Some might have wings, like you see here with the drawing that I'm working on now, while others might not have wings, and even their size can slightly vary as well. At the center of their stone bodies is an elemental energy core, which you will see once I get to the colored version, that the energy's light will seep through the cracks and spaces between the rocky hides. And there's usually a spot somewhere on their body with a large gap where you can see into this core, and that is where you would want to strike to defeat them in combat. It's basically a video game weak point. I'd say that probably the most iconic gargoyle for me that I can think of in video games is the one from Conker's Bad Fur Day back on the N64, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Shout out to all the homies out there who remember it. I really can't think of many other gargoyles that stand out, to be honest, besides something like the Gargoyles cartoon back in the day, which I also loved when I was a kid. But anyways, when it comes to designing elementals, I feel like the ones that revolve around the element of earth are always the most fun to draw. There's just so much you can do to incorporate rocks or dirt or plant matter into their designs. And the other two that I drew up for the first volume of the bestiary were the Trent and the Snapvine Hydra. And now that I think of it, I gotta come up with some water, air, thunder, and light elementals as well, since those are missing as of right now. I do have an idea for a light elemental already, but I just haven't been able to fully flesh it out yet. But let me know in the comments down below some possible ideas for an elemental based on those other types that I just mentioned. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the Gargoyle. And now I'll go ahead and read off its lore before we move on to the final creature of today's video. Gargoyles are not living, breathing animals, but rather incarnations of elemental forces, manifestations of raw, earthen magic formed into beasts of stone. These creatures can be found tucked away in rocky regions amongst old temples, ancient ruins, or fallen kingdoms. They may lay waiting amongst the rubble in silence for a millennia, never awaking from their stasis unless disturbed by some foreign interloper. The great earth magic that fuels these beasts can be seen seeping through the cracks of their cold stone bodies. Physical attacks will do little to stop these elementals, forcing one to fight magic with magic instead. And of course you can see there with the other sketch, I didn't draw the wings on there. And also if you look there in its chest, I left that gap there so you can kind of see like the energy core. And with this one out the way, we'll go ahead and move on to the final creature of today's video. Okay, so just to start off, this right here is definitely my favorite creature that I designed for today's video. It is a species of wyvern that I'm calling the Redtide Reaver. I based its design off that of the frigate bird, which is a really cool species of bird with this vibrant red colored pouch that it can inflate. Since those birds hang out around the coasts and are known to steal food from other seabirds, I thought it would be fun to incorporate that into this wyvern here. And when I think about oceans and thievery, I think about pirates. So if we pull up the world map here, these wyverns live throughout the coastlines on the southern edges of the continent Sundara. Some of you may recall from one of my previous videos for this series, but this area is also home to things like the kraken and the sea monkey and the lavaback crab. A lot of that area around the Merchantine Isles and the Galleon Sea and Bay of Thieves is themed around the pirate's life and tropical vibes of the Caribbean in our world. When I was designing this creature here, instead of giving it regular wings, I wanted to make them look like a mix of bird wings and flippers. The Redtide Reaver can soar through the skies above and dive straight down into the sea like a missile and swim through the waters to catch their prey. They are a very hated species amongst the seafaring folk because these beasts will on occasion attack fishermen or merchants for their fishing hauls. And there are even some pirates who have learned to tame these creatures to carry out their dastardly plans when plundering ships throughout the Nereal Ocean. Another thing I did with the design here is incorporate a little more of that ocean aspect with the bunch of spikes on the gular pouch, so that when it inflates it kind of looks like a pufferfish. When I was drawing this one up on the live stream, actually, the people in chat decided to give it the nickname of the dragon fruit because of the look of that spiky round gular sac on its neck. My favorite trio of colors is red, black, and white, so the fact that this Reaver has all three of those in its color palette also makes it particularly cool in my opinion. I just feel like this is one of those concepts where all these different little details and aspects just end up tying all in together pretty well. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the Redtide Reaver. And now for its lore entry. The Redtide Reaver is a formidable wyvern that makes its roost along ocean cliffsides off the southern coastlines of Sundara. They have a bright red, spiky gular pouch that they can inflate to serve multiple purposes, be it mating displays, intimidation, improved aerial maneuverability, or buoyancy to float atop the ocean waters. These predatory animals are notorious for attacking seafaring folk for their fishing hauls. Some pirates have even learned to tame the Reavers to use as mounts when raiding vessels for their loot. Here you can see with some other details that their thick wings work like flippers when diving through the waters, and their body's feathers are short and stiff and overlap to form an insulated waterproof layer. And that's going to be it for today's creature design and ecology video. Do me a solid, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you like the content and want to see more of it. Also, consider becoming a member to my channel if you want to have access to all of my past drawing live streams here on the channel. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.